Jimmy, we're excited to have you on the show today. So tell us your story.
My story is that I have hustled and grind all the way to build this business that we are sitting in today. I literally started out with nothing, and this is what we built.
All right.
So we built it through remodeling here in the Des Moines area. I did have a background a little bit in culinary arts and chef before. So
Okay, so how did you get started into the remodeling business?
it's a funny question because I looked at your notes when I was doing it, and I was like, I don't know how I got into remodeling. The story's pretty funny. So I started a catering company back in '09 called Bach Catering. And through the process of doing business, and we were awesome, I learned everything I know about business in that little small sector of 3 or 4 years. But when I started looking at the numbers and the time involved, I was like, this is rough, So I was like, this is really rough. I'm working a lot of hours, and at the end of the day, I'm not seeing the rewards that I want out of a catering company, basically. One of my buddies at the time had a little bit of background in remodeling, not a lot, but he had a little bit, and he was starting to dabble in it. And when I kind of went off to get rid of my catering company and kind of sell that off, I just kind of jumped on with him, and then there were nuances that were kind of the same. It was all new, open to me, I got into the chef career the same way I got into remodeling, which was it was so new to me. Like, I never understood that all of the logistics behind getting your food at a restaurant look like that. And it blew my mind. There were so many intricacies, and there were so many things that went on to give you a plate of food at a restaurant. Yeah. It was the same way with remodeling. Like, I didn't know anything about a house. I mean, I couldn't even swing it. I always say to people, I couldn't even swing a hammer when I started this. I didn't, and he gave me a bag of drills. So I had an impact drill and a regular drill. And then he put together a little, he might have bought it, but it was a little suitcase. It had like a hammer and a couple screwdrivers, a level, and one of those little starter kits. And that's how we started, and this is what we got.
So tell me a little bit more about the beginnings of your career.
Yeah, so I've always been hustling, it seems like, and grinding. I had a paper out when I was 7 years old, just a little local newspaper once a week. The first time I really even really endeavored into anything entrepreneurship, I was in 4th grade, elementary school, and we created what we called a drawing club. So we would take these notepad papers, and we would draw the one I specifically remember is like a Batman symbol. And it was really cool, it was big, and some of my friends wanted to buy it from me. Well, I started selling them in school, and we got in big trouble. My parents got called down. They were like, your child can't be selling pieces of paper to other kids, even though it is a very cool Batman symbol, or whatever. So other guys got joined in on it, and then that's what happened, is it got too big for our britches, basically. That's the first time I really remember, putting something together for a price,
Yeah.
But throughout all the ages, that's what I've done. I actually got dropped out of Iowa State a little bit early because I just wanted to make money, and I just wanted to help people and get through all this, like you were talking about job shadowing and stuff, and I was job shadowing a couple people at Iowa State, and I was like, man, this desk sitting and this stuff is just, for me, I don't know, man.
What were you going to school for?
Well, I started as aerospace engineering, and then eventually I went into business management, marketing, stuff like that.
Yeah.
I did take a year and earn my commercial pilot's license.
Oh, cool.
So I was just confused. I was just generally confused in my early 20s. But one thing that I did know is that I liked making money, and I liked, just kicking butt and taking names, So I was cooking in the background, and I really enjoyed cooking. It was intense. It was, I wrestled in high school, so I had that background. And so I kind of looked at cooking, when all those tickets come in, I kind of felt like it was this moment of hoorah type stuff, So
Sure.
When I did drop out of Iowa State, that was one of the things that I went into was kitchens. And with kitchens, every day is different. Like I said, with remodeling, it's the same thing. It's every day is different. There's stuff comes at you all the time. It doesn't, it never is complacent. There's always drama and, you know, emotion and everything we do. So, and I kind of like that stuff and I feed off of it. But I always knew once I got into cooking and being a chef and then earning my own, I earned my own kitchen and earned the title of chef, and I didn't go to school and I earned it. You know, I worked 2-3 kitchens sometimes at a time just to gain knowledge and work through it. I actually had a chef sit me down in 2004 and said, you know, Jimmy, I know you're looking into schools and stuff for culinary arts, but he's like, man, if you really want it, you'll just work and you'll get there. And he handed me a cookbook, the Culinary Institute of America's like student handbook, which is like that big. And he's like, this is my gift to you. As I was coming down to Des Moines, I was moving to Des Moines. And from that process, I just earned it and earned it and earned it, you know. But I always knew in the back of my mind that I wanted to own a business.
Did you ever think about starting a restaurant?
The whole goal of starting off originally was to own my own restaurant, you know. And so the hard part for me was understanding, getting that push to get over into the entrepreneur space, you know. Like, I didn't know about funding, I didn't know about overhead, I didn't know anything about that. So the reason we started the catering company back in the day is because we were basically offered to rent a kitchen. So that's how it all worked out. And then that kind of shoved us into entrepreneurship. You know, I had like $20,000 saved up and we just did it. It already had the kitchen equipment and stuff, and then we just started moving forward with that 20 grand that we had. And we just kind of built it the same way we built KnoPros, you know, it was just slowly and surely.
How long did you do the catering?
About 3 years. 3 years, I think, 3 or 4 years. Like I said before, that was great. It was awesome. We had fun doing it. We were doing, you know, 4, 5, 6 weddings a month. We were catering a bunch of business lunches. We ran a little restaurant out of the back of that thing, kind of, you know. So there was a daily grind on there too. But at the end of the day, it was like, you know, I was getting older and I thought about starting a family, and like, you know, these hours are just not conducive to anything but this, you know. It's a major commitment to be a chef and to own your own business, and the hours are long and it's really grueling. So I guess for lack of a better word, I had to like grow up, you know. I hate that word because I think culinary arts, I think, is way more than people give it credit to. It's not only a career, it's really hard lifestyle. So when people say stuff like, you know, I would hear servers that would come in, you know, and they would, oh, I got a real job, you know, or, you know, bartenders or even cooks that worked for me, they would, you know, they'd say shit like that, you know, like, whoa, you know, we got a real job, you know. And it always offended me then, and it offends me now, but at the same time, like, there is kind of that evolution where you have to like innovatively like figure out where you're going to go and how you're going to go in order to get the lifestyle that you want, basically. So.
Yeah. So transitioning from the catering, you went into kitchen remodeling?
Yeah, so I used remodeling it was a side hustle. So I was cooking at night, and I was cooking during, you know, every other day or something like that, and I would fill in with a couple of remodeling companies, and you know, I was flat out honest with them. I was like, I'm part-time, you need some help, call me, you know, the same way I did it with my friends was, you know, if I need help, I'll call you and you can come down and work with us for a little bit. So at first I did it just as a side hustle, and then I finally signed on with that guy once the catering company had dissolved. I signed on with my buddy who was starting his company, his remodeling company, and that's kind of where it went. So once that had its issues and I had found my own avenue, then I just kind of jumped, and that's where we wound up. So I liked remodeling because it had a lot of both worlds. So it had the question marks that are around cooking, it had the intensity in some areas, but it didn't have, you know, the perishable inventory. You know, that was a big thing for me. Like, perishable inventory is a totally different world than wood sitting in the back door, you know. It's totally different when you don't have to worry about it rotting in the back of you, you know what I mean? It's just a totally different avenue to take. So there were other nuances that were the same, you know. Customer service obviously was the same. Some of the systems on the backside, you know, accounting, marketing, some of that stuff was already in my wheelhouse, so I didn't have to adapt too much to that. But like scheduling, all that stuff I had already done for, you know, I was a sous chef at the age of 22, so I knew management, some of those management principles, and all that stuff carries over in any field. So yeah, so that part wasn't hard. So the nice thing about cooking first and learning entrepreneurship was that by doing the cooking first, I knew how to cook, right? I knew I was one of the top cooks anywhere I went. So I knew that I could cook. I knew that I could put out 200 dishes in 2 hours. I just knew that part. I could do that with my eyes closed.
Right.
So learning the entrepreneur side on that made it super easy because I was only doing half and half. So then when I switched over to remodeling, well, then it was vice versa. Now I knew the background of the business, but I didn't know what I was doing when I was doing the product.
Right.
So hand in hand, it was kind of a weird inverted learning system that helped both ways. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So one smoothed out the other on vice versa situations. So it was kind of a cool way to do it.
Yeah.
So pretty unique.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So what were the major struggles in the early days, first getting started?
In the early days getting started, I would say the biggest thing with remodeling getting started was, first of all, I had to find people that were willing to take a chance on me. Because I didn't know anything, so
Right.
to take a chance on somebody that didn't know anything, I had a great real estate investor who wanted to show me everything he could, and a lot of his training was figure it out, go on YouTube and figure it out and start working on it, and through those processes we got better and better and better. We talked to pros and we learned. But that's probably the biggest thing, was just finding people that could trust me. There were customers that were like, I would be completely honest. I'd walk in and be like, I have no idea how to do this, but I'll figure it out.
Right.
And people would take a shot at it. They'd be like, okay, I like you, Jimmy. You're a cool kid. You got stuff going on. I feel like this will work, and then they would hand me some money. And in those early years, we didn't see a lot of money, So if you did something like, say we were going to build a closet out or something weird, the pay was never right. You know what I mean? It was always, scratch and go type of stuff, because we didn't even know what we were estimating. We were like, okay, I'm gonna go buy a bunch of wood, and we'll come up with this, and yada yada yada. So back in those early days, it's really, really kind of a whim. You just kind of roll with it and kind of take your punches, and basically, like I said, hustle and grind until you get to a point where you know what's going on. So
Yeah. How did you get those first few customers?
So through a process with that other company, I learned the basics. So I learned about framing. I learned the different power tools. He had me cutting on table saws and miters and all that stuff. You sweat the first day you use a table saw. You know what I mean? It's just
Right.
I got used to that kind of stuff over like maybe a year of training with my buddy, and then he kind of had a falling out, and he, through a process, I wasn't working there anymore. It was pretty amicable. I went down to one of my friend's bosses, who is an owner, and he had a bunch of real estate investment properties. And him and his buddy, who did a lot of their flips together, this is back in 2013-ish, they took a chance on me. I had known them before, so they knew me as a chef and stuff, so they knew I was business-minded and stuff. And they kind of just took me under their wing, and they were like, okay, here's how we're going to do it. And the flips that they were doing weren't these monster HGTV flips. We called them lipstick flips. We were changing out handles on the doors from gold to silver. We were changing sconces and putting cooler sconces on. They would change out the countertops, and then I would come in behind them and paint all the walls. And, it was just simple, good stuff. My fun story is the backsplash. He set down a box of tile on the counter, and he goes, okay, do a backsplash. I'm going to pay you blah, blah, blah. Here we go. And I was like, I have no idea what you're talking about. I didn't even know what tile was. I was like, oh, wow, tile. Okay, let's do this. I had a friend in a previous life that did tile. And so I called him up, and I was like, hey, man, I know you work 9 to 5. Can you come over on a Saturday and just show me how to do this? And so he did.
Right.
He came over on a Saturday. A lot of times back then, if I had people work with me or something, I would pay them halvesies. So like say a backsplash was, back then it was like $800 for a backsplash. I would say, all right, come over and help me, and we'll do halvesies. I was like, you get 400, I'll get 400, or
Yeah.
that's how I rolled at the beginning. So that was really the first start. Then as we started doing that, other people heard about it, and I would post things, and people, and then we got a couple of real estate agents that would give us like honeydew lists.
Oh, sure.
And we started doing that, and then those people would ask us back. So, once we did a honeydew list for this client or like 4 or 5 clients, 2 or 3 of those out of there would say, hey, Jimmy, do you know how to do this? And I would wing it and figure it out, so
Yeah.
that's kind of how it grew.
Yeah. Do you have any advice for your younger self in those early days?
Oh man, charge more.
Charge.
Charge more. And I would give that to any novice. Like, if you think you're worth $100, you should double it to 2. You know what I mean? Just because that learning phase, you're gonna take bruises and you're gonna get beat up and you're gonna get into these projects that are way bigger. I would say always just, especially when you're young, just you got it. There's a fine line there, obviously, because you don't know what you're doing,
Right.
sometimes, and you kind of got to take your graces. But I mean, learning how to charge and learning how to work with the customer on what's okay and what's not, and you know what I mean, that kind of thing. That would be my biggest advice to my younger self, is just kind of increase incrementally, maybe a little bit faster on how you
Sure.
how you invoice and do that with a client. So.
As a kitchen remodeling company, what are some of the most common challenges you run into on a project?
On a kitchen, it's pretty like cut and dry. We get into a lot of design things, and clients tend to think that cabinets are like Legos. So they just want to shove something in here, they want to move this around, and they think it's like, a couple $100 to take a cabinet off a wall and put it back on, or you know what I mean? So the biggest thing that we run into is just design faux pas where they saw this on HGTV and then we have to translate that, and it's like, okay, yep, we can do this, but you can't have your cake and eat it too. We got to slim this down and increase this, and just moving all that stuff around. So trying to get their design ideas into a concrete vision of what they actually want and allowing them to, fit in their budget at the same time, which is also a whole nother aspect of it, you know what I mean? So I think that's the biggest thing we see in kitchens. When it comes to anything else, difficulty-wise, on our end, we've got a lot of it tailored down. So we know that there's these 100 things that everybody's going to point out, and there's these 100 things that we point out to help them with it. So at this stage in the game now, I mean, we just had our 10-year anniversary this month. So like at this stage in the game, my brother, who does all the sales and stuff, we have it locked up. We have our systems in place in the back. We have things locked up.
Sure. Would you say there's any specific skills or character traits that you need to have to be in this business?
I was just talking to you before we started this, but I don't like using the word fight, but you do have to have some resilience. You got to have some strength you got to have some character. You got to be willing to take your punches. Like I was saying about the younger years, like you have to be willing to, eat cereal for 5 days a week while you're trying to make your rent check and buying tools, and you know what I mean? You got to be really resilient. You have to be really trustworthy and customer orientated. One of the biggest things I see in contracting is people have a tendency to treat some customers like they owe them, kind of thing, So. Sure. Taking care of the client and like understanding that they're trusting you with money and their home. I mean, the home is like everything to every family, right? I mean, it's a big deal that you're going in there. So if they don't like you walking with your shoes on, you got to put paper down. If they don't like you doing this, then you've got to adapt to that, and you have to make sure that client and customer feels comfortable dealing with what they're dealing with right now in their home. That's one of the things I like about Kitchen Refreshes, because it's really non-invasive. That's one of the things we really like about it. So the clients don't deal with a lot of the headache that they deal with in other remodeling circumstances, so that helps ease that tension quite a bit. So
sure.
Yeah.
So on The Hidden Hustle, our goal is to uncover the stories that most people don't see. So what's one thing that you do behind the scenes that maybe your customer might not realize, but makes the difference as to why they should choose you over your competitors?
I think one of the big things is, obviously, when you get to this stage in the game later on, you start to understand that you need to develop a lot of relationships, you need to develop a lot of systems. So those would be the two biggest things on the background that I don't think people understand. The systems that we have in place, walking a client from when we measure their kitchen for their custom doors, and then the 3 months after that to the fruition of the kitchen, there's a lot that goes on, whether it's ordering all the parts, whether it's bringing all this together. They literally just see us walk in, transform their kitchen, and they're like, ta-da, you know what I mean?
Right.
There's, backsplash tile subcontractors that we deal with. We deal with the quartz companies, we got several of those. We deal with hardware companies, there's a couple of those. That, just bringing those aspects, all those points together for just one simple kitchen, you know what I mean?
Right.
And I don't think that that's seen as much, but the chaos that goes into all that is awesome, and it's kind of cool to watch it all funnel down into that kitchen. So
Yeah, definitely more extensive than one might seem.
yeah, it's way more complex.
Yeah. Was there a turning point in your business, like a particular project or time where you feel like we made it, like we did it, like we're past that growth phase?
Yeah, I don't know if we will ever be past the growth phase. My brother always comments about how he wishes I would just sit on my laurels once in a while in a quarter or something. But because I always like growth, period.
No, grow or die, definitely.
Yeah, just always looking for the next growth aspect. But the big thing for us was we had been remodeling for probably about 5 or 6 years. And we grew it up big, and then we took it down, and we grew it up big, and then, it was just, there was always unknowns, and there was always these things, and that's kind of why we picked kitchens, is because it was a niche. I know it's a bigger niche, but this kind of remodeling process that we do now is so innovative that it was a really tight niche, and we like that.
Sure.
But I think that first year in Kitchen Refresh, when we were starting to get our wheels running and stuff, that was a big point in our process to where we felt comfortable, right? After, when we built this studio, that was the moment when we were like, wow, we now have our name on a building in Des Moines, Iowa, you know what I mean, or Urbandale is where we're at here. But having, I remember when they put the sign up outside, I was like, oh man, this is real, dude, this is the real deal, right. Hoofda, and I remember I would drive by at night on purpose because I wanted to see the sign lit, and every night, Lacey, my wife, would be like, what are you doing? I'm like, I'm going to go take a road trip over to the studio and just take a gander. And I would literally just drive down 100th right here and just drive back, drive up, and turn around just to see the sign, It was just a really, really, really big moment. So, and this building's awesome. Like, you can see we have, windows everywhere, and it's a really pretty building. It all came together really cool. So that was a big moment.
Yeah. What did you do to build on that success and keep the ball rolling, like you said?
So once we started figuring out that Kitchen Refresh was what it was, and that we knew we had something innovative, and it was like this new introduction to Des Moines, and we didn't think that there were that many people doing it, and we kind of found out that there weren't that many people doing what we do. Once we found that golden nugget, and then we got into the building and all that other stuff, the biggest turning thing that I did after that was we started marketing and learning about marketing, and that's been a fun adventure for the last 2 or 3 years, is just learning marketing, understanding marketing. We've sponsored some people with their kitchens. We've gotten into, we're down at the Wild right now working with them a little bit. We're always doing TV commercials, radio, all that fun stuff. So, and that's an adventure. I mean, I don't know if business owners, from a business owner standpoint, once I got into that world, I was like, oh no, this is a whole nother book that I didn't know existed,
Right.
So there's hundreds of ways to market, and that's fun to play with and see what works and what doesn't. And it's literally like starting your own little business again, because you're going through the pitfalls again. You're getting, that radio didn't work. Uh-oh, we just lost some money on that, and moving that around and shuffling, it's pretty cool. So that's a whole nother aspect.
What have you found that works best?
We really like radio. We obviously have our social media presence, and the corporation that Kitchen Refresh retains, they do quite a bit on social media with us. Radio works really good. We do still throw out TV commercials. They're awesome. People really like them. I think it adds a level of professionalism to your company to have that visual effect on a TV.
Sure.
I think people can trust you more because you've invested in that, But those are the things. The fun things that we do are we sponsor people. So big one is Chris Williams on Cyclone Fanatics.
Oh, really?
We sponsored him last year. Yeah, he was a blast to work with. We've sponsored some radio DJs. We sponsored Heather Burnside on KXNO. Those are fun. We get an opportunity to really get to know those people, and we give them a kitchen, and it's really fun to do. And then they talk about it, and they talk, they love it, and it's awesome. So that's kind of fun to do.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah.
What's a mistake that you often see with kitchen remodels?
I would say a mistake with kitchen remodels is if I had to say anything, I mean, kitchen remodels are pretty cut and dry. Like I said, your house only allows for so much. I mean, if you want to put an island in the middle, that kind of stuff, there's really no faux pas there to like get caught up on. It's basically just building and putting it where it needs to go. The biggest thing that I could see is that the first thing is that, like I said, Legos and not understanding how it works and getting into it with a price change. You know what I mean? The other thing, in my opinion, this is only my opinion, it's not anybody else's, but spending $40,000 to $60,000 on new cabinets when you have beautiful box cabinets that are already really good. So that's the beauty of Kitchen Refresh, because we come in and we save your boxes and put on these new doors. So
Sure.
for me, now I don't think that's company-wide, I don't think that's normal. I think most of the cabinet people are probably going to kick me in the teeth for it, but I like our system and I like adding these doors to make a beautiful kitchen out of what's already there.
Yeah.
Saving people tons and tons of money.
Yeah, that's cool. Are there any trends in kitchen remodeling that you see clients asking for?
Yeah. So one of the biggest trends I see is like this cabinet is a normal height of 30 inches, and then this one is actually extended up. Our ceilings are 12, 15 feet here, so we couldn't get them to the ceiling, but we have a special system that takes your cabinets to the ceiling. That's huge right now. People want that big look. It looks awesome, especially in these, post-2000 homes. I mean, putting the cabinets to the ceiling just makes that kitchen look massive. It adds a ton of storage on top. It's a huge, huge trend. The gold hardware is coming back. That's been on trend for a while. They're getting way more awesome, way cooler. The hardware selections are getting really, really wicked. There's a lot of really fun hardware you can put on kitchens. I personally like adding the bevels and the crown and all that stuff to an existing kitchen because it adds a ton of flavor to a kitchen, so some of those detail works. And then always with us, or with any kitchen really, if you have an opportunity to get it remodeled, you can add all the fun stuff like rollouts or trash rollouts or, pantry rollouts, all that fun stuff. So those are huge.
On the extended cabinets, do you do the crown molding on those as well?
We can, yeah. It just depends, yep.
Sure.
Yep.
Is there anything in particular that you think is going to be huge in the next year?
I don't know. We always try to stay ahead of it because, West Coast, East Coast, and then Des Moines, so we always see stuff. The weird colors are coming in. That's awesome. We've seen a lot of greens, royal green. We have a really pretty navy blue. We're seeing some of those weird pastel colors. We're actually doing a kitchen next week that's like a really soft red. That's what I would call it. The color is Arizona, so if you kind of think about a soft red, it's really kind of pastel-y red.
Pastel, yeah.
Yeah, it's really cool. So those are coming in, and they're getting really, really dominant here in Des Moines. It's been trending out on the coast for a while, but now they're coming to Des Moines. So we're seeing a lot more. I would say people being way more adventurous. They're actually getting into those colors and stuff. Another weird trend that we've seen quite a bit this year, and moving forward probably, is like the innovation on sinks. So like cutting boards that fit in your sink, weird like the cup cleaners, bigger sinks. People are doing 36-inch sinks, 42-inch sinks. That's kind of cool. Stuff like that. So yeah, that's the only those are the trends that I've really seen right now. That's about all I can think of right now.
Undermount versus drop-in sinks. Do you see any trends with that?
We only do undermount.
Okay.
So because we do rock countertops only, because rock is really the only upgrade that we kind of see. We don't do lateral moves, so we only do quartz and granite, and those are, 99% of the time they're undermounts.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that's kind of where we go with it. I don't know if there's a better or worse situation. I mean, it is what it is. But once in a great while, we'll have somebody request that they want it overmount. But
yeah.
I think undermount is probably the biggest trend.
Definitely cleaner.
Yeah.
What are the biggest lessons that remodeling has taught you about managing a business?
Man, there's so many. It takes so many systems and so many things just to get a project off the ground. There's so many hats that we wear, whether it's me or anybody in the building, but it's, you're a carpenter, you're a tiler, you're an accountant, you're a, you got to invoice, you got to, you got to order the materials, you got to make sure that's all set up. You know, at any given time, we're managing anywhere from, I would say, probably 15 to 25 kitchens at any time. You know, like I said, we install anywhere from 8 to 12 a month. So managing and making sure all that goes through is a process on its own, you know. But I had some of that background with the chef world too. So like it's the same thing, you know, the food and the people and all that stuff. So the one big thing that it's taught me, the biggest thing I think, is the value of a person or an employee, you know, inside of your company. It means a lot to train somebody up and have them work with you and, you know, be conducive to the environment that we work through, which sometimes can be high pressure, you know. So it's just understanding and knowing that those people are going to take care of your clients, and they're also going to take care of your company, and that, you know, from the ground up, not from the top down.
Sure.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah.
For any aspiring business owners out there, what advice would you give them if they're just starting out?
My biggest advice that I give every business owner starting out is do not take out a massive loan and buy a building and buy trucks and buy tools. Start off, gain your clientele, earn your clientele, and as you grow, then start implementing those massive processes. You know what I mean? So when we were first starting out, when we were doing those real estate investment properties and stuff, we would take, you know, 5 to 10% of every check and buy a new tool. That's how we kind of, I mean, you know, if we got a big project and it was $4,000, we'd go buy a table saw, you know. We were like, oh, yay, you know, we got a table saw, you know, or like we saved up a little bit and we bought our trailer that we put everything in, you know. And I mean, for a long time, we didn't have a shop, you know, we just rolled with it, you know. So I think a lot of people get in over their heads off that, you know, gross number at the beginning, and then they can't compensate for that due to like a high rent or like a high auto loan, or, you know, multiple auto loans sometimes with some guys, you know. Don't get that overhead process without knowing and understanding that this is where you're going to go and that your system works. You know,
Bootstrap it.
Yeah, if you can. It's really rare. You don't see it very much. Like I always talk about it with some of my people. It's like you just don't see people bootstrap like they used to, you know. Money's so available that, you know, you can go out and buy a new truck real quick and you can label it up, and you just don't see it as much as you used to.
If someone is considering a remodel, what's unique about Kitchen Refresh and your experience with the client?
So our biggest thing is the amount that it costs to do it and the time that it costs to do it. So going to the costs of it, you're going to keep your existing cabinets, and you're going to, we basically just paint the frames and then we put on these brand new manufactured doors. The doors are not painted. They're a foil finish, and they're way more resilient than paint. Painted kitchens work for a period of time, but then obviously we all know what the faux pas of paint are. It turns into a mess. Cleaning them is kind of difficult. It's kind of weird. With this, it's way better. It's way more protected. The other thing is time. So it's really non-invasive. We come in, we take off all your old doors. You know, we paint by hand. We don't paint with a sprayer. That helps for that non-invasiveness. You know, you don't have to take things out of your cabinets if you don't want to. We're not doing a bunch of construction-y work, and that's kind of the best thing about Kitchen Refresh, is saving you a bunch of money with what you already have. I mean, we can move stuff around. So like if you know, maybe we want to change that cabinet and put it over here or something, you know, that helps. That's only going to help your coin, because later on when we do all the doors, it still looks the same, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I was telling you about those pencil desks.
Right.
Everybody from the 90s before had a pencil desk where they set the phone and all that stuff. Well, people are ripping those out. We see probably 1 out of 5 that gets that done. And then we replace it with that pantry. And they're usually perfect. You know, it's like a 36-inch desk or a 24-inch desk or something. It fits perfect in there. So those are some of the really cool things.
Yeah. Looking ahead, where do you see the remodeling industry going?
I think the remodeling industry is only going to continue to keep rising as it has. With HGTV and some of the innovations that have came out in the last, 10 years, it's only growing. My one worry about the remodeling industry is there will be a gap. There will be a labor gap in here somewhere, because obviously when we were kids, they didn't tell us to go to college to be a carpenter. So in my generation, Gen X's and even early millennials, there's going to be a gap there. Some people have bailed out and they have done what we've done and, you know, came up through it, but there will be a gap in there, and that labor cost will rise at some point here. And that's one of my only big foretellings of it. As far as like where it's going to go and what it's going to lead to, remodeling has been remodeling since probably the beginning of time. I'm sure they were remodeling huts back in the day. Like it's, you know, you make your house better and you call guys that you can trust. Personally, I believe that when you hire somebody for a remodeling company, you should hire somebody that you can trust. They don't have to be a licensed big boy, but you should be able to trust them. You should be able to talk it out with them, and you should have awesome communication with them. I'm not saying they have to be licensed, bonded, insured, and all the crazy stuff that goes with being a corporation or anything, you know, because I once was not that, right? That's kind of where KnoPros came from, because it was KNO, but honestly, we weren't pros, you know, we didn't know what we were doing. So that's kind of where our name came from. But if anything, you should at least be able to communicate. You should have an open line of communication, because when you open these things up, a lot can happen. You don't know what's behind a wall, you don't know what's behind a cabinet, you don't know what's going on, you know, in a basement with plumbing and wiring and everything else that goes on. So that person and you have to have, it is a relationship, you know. I even tell some of my clients, I'm like, it's so sad that I don't get to see you every day, you know, because we don't get it, you know, we get into these people's lives and, you know, have coffee with them in the morning sometimes, and, you know, you get to know these families and stuff, and it is kind of it has to be a relationship back and forth, so.
How do you plan to stay ahead of the curve with where the industry is going?
The way that we're going to stay ahead of the curve is we're going to keep innovating the products that we bring in for kitchens. So it helps. Kitchen Refresh is a franchise, so that helps us with that. But inside KnoPros, some of the innovations that we've done is we've branched out into other services relating to kitchens, whether that be, you know, like we do our own, we have a faucet line. You know, with lighting, we help them with the lighting. Like I said, the hardware is always continuing to evolve. We're going to try to bring in all those things, and then keeping our standard high. Like, I think the hard part about remodeling is bringing in subcontractors and bringing in people that have the same standard as you, you know. So staying with that standard and keeping ahead of that is always going to be a solution to a problem that we always have to keep up on.
Yeah. What's next for Kitchen Refresh and KnoPros?
What is next? We have kind of experimented with looking outside of Des Moines. We've had a couple of offers pertaining to Cedar Rapids, Davenport, Omaha, some locations close. Kansas City is still available. That might be in our near future. A second location is probably in the future. I don't know what that timeline looks like. Some other things that we're doing, we ventured into floors, so we're doing that. That is this year. 2024 was an adventure into flooring. That's been fun and exciting. We have a really cool porcelain-lined LVP kind of flooring line. It's kind of different and unique. Just continuing to evolve and continuing to make our customers happy. You know, I don't know if I want Des Moines to get that massive and that big, because it seems like every time I get too big, I can't offer that customer service that I want. Right. So I try to keep it within a pocket and keep those people that are in our circle happy. So if anything, it's branching out to other services and other people, so other areas.
Yeah. Besides the second location, are there any exciting projects or expansions you're planning on for 2025?
No, not really. 2025 is probably going to be more of the same for us. That's what we like about it. In remodeling, everything's exciting all the time, and for us, if it's not exciting, that's more exciting, you know. So if we can keep it on an even keel and keep just processing and keep people happy and keep moving and keep going forward, that's actually probably a bigger thing in remodeling for us, and you know what I mean. So keeping people happy and just continuing to push forward and refining our systems, and you know, we'll get bigger. 2025 will get bigger, and we'll do more marketing, and we'll add crews and stuff on, but only to a point.
Yeah.
So,
if anyone listening right now is considering a kitchen remodel, what's the best way to get in touch with Kitchen Refresh?
Right now, we're doing kind of the end of the year promotion. We did a state fair promotion that was kind of gangbusters, and we had people sign up for this promo, and then we offered them like this huge discounted savings thing behind it, and it was so successful that now we're doing, I don't know the details yet, but going into the end of 2024, we are going to have some massive, massive discounts. I'm not going to say any numbers, maybe 25, but I don't know the exact percentage yet, but going in that direction. So contact us immediately because there's a ton of awesome rebates and stuff going on. One of the things I know we're doing is our 12-month financing is free of charge. So there's usually a financing charge behind it, but
Yep.
we're going to eat that. So going into the 2025, we're going to eat that financing charge. So we have 12 months, 0% interest on all kitchens. So we're on all social media. We're on X, formerly known as Twitter. We're on Instagram. We have 3 or 4 different avenues on Facebook. Our website is kitchenrefreshiowa.com. We have the corporate website, which is kitchenrefresh.net. We're always down here at our studio at 2805 100th Street. But anywhere in any of those locales, you can sign up for a free consultation, and Joey will come out and show you how we do this and kind of show you what the ropes are, because it is kind of different. Mm-hmm. It's a little bit, it needs some explaining because it's so innovative and different. So he's seen thousands of kitchens, and he can help you map out what you want, pick out from the 280 colors that we have to show you, and that's how you kind of get a hold of us.
Mm-hmm. Awesome.
Yeah, way cool.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for joining us today, Jimmy. For everyone tuning in, be sure to check out Kitchen Refresh by KnoPros. And if you're looking to refresh your space, Kitchen Refresh is your go-to choice. So you can find more details in the show notes below.